call the Ripon Area Fire District Board meeting to order, being 7 o'clock. Roll call, Mr. Page.
Here.
Mr. Wirch.
Here.
Mr. Hanson.
Here.
Mr. Wargula.
Here.
Ms. Schatzinger.
Here.
And we have a new member to our board tonight, Jonathan Gatsky.
Here.
Representing the city. And a quick introduction, Gary is with the town of Ripon. Mike down there is up with the town of DPS. You should know. I shouldn't say you should know, but I guess you know the rest of you guys. And I'm also with the town of Ripon. Any changes to the agenda? If not, we'll look for a motion.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Any public comment? I have one. On behalf of Mr. Moniz, the Fire District Board did send flowers to Mr. Moniz and the family, just to let you guys know. If any of you would like to pay for part of that, that's entirely up to you. But we can take care of that after the meeting. So, any other public comment?
Just say thanks for doing that.
You're welcome. Approve secretary's reports.
I'll make a motion to approve the secretary's report as presented.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Treasurer's report. Any questions, comments?
It really is pretty much self-explanatory for the expenditures. It's the only thing on page 1, the renter's fire equipment, that was, we were having some regeneration issues with the ladder truck. So that had to go in and get repaired. And Ace Hours was just miscellaneous supplies for class that one of our members was going to, and just miscellaneous supplies around the station. And then on page 2, the sweet and salty, that was for the water rescue call we had, and afterwards, and when we had our storm standby of our crews, our mutual aid companies. Those are the only things I needed to point out.
Any other questions for the chief on the accounts or outstanding? Excuse me, on the accounts payable in the treasurer's report. If not, we'll look for a motion.
Make a motion to approve the treasurer's report and accounts payable.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
All right, any other discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Anything on outstandings, Jim?
No, we got nothing in collections right now. Again, still some COVID protocols, but towards the end of the year, wrap it up, send them, so they'll be there for tax intercept in the spring. So anticipation would be October, November meeting, probably November meeting, so we'll probably send them one last chance for them kind of right now, and then if they don't do anything or make payment arrangements, then we'll send them to collections for the spring.
Okay, very good, thank you.
I know there were some of them that did come in,
Here and there.
that Barb just got the Barb, so I don't think those were updated on here, but
A couple, she said.
yeah,
No.
a couple.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I think one was like an insurance that was way old or something, just finally got paid.
Chief's report.
Fire inspection update, we did 130 inspections are complete, and we'll have all those, are like every year, are completed by the latest November 12th. Usually we have them done by November 1st. Project update, there's, I wanted to see about using some excess funds for those, but that's not gonna happen at this time. So the association is doing a raffle to help finish some projects around the station, so that'll be coming up, but nothing other than that. Staffing update, we got 28, we have 28 active members, and that's including the chiefs and support staff. So if you take away those chiefs and support, and you know, we're down to about 25 members, so that's about where we're at. Call volume, we're at 249 calls for the year. There is a little discrepancy with Fond du Lac County's numbering system versus our numbering system. I think that we're probably about another 10 calls more than that, but we don't know for sure. We're going through that right now. So, but right now, officially, it's 249 calls. You know, that includes the calls from July we'll talk about in a second, but that's 67 calls above where we were last year, and but probably 30 plus of those calls came in the 2 days with the storm stuff going on. So you really gotta take the storm in consideration.
Why is there a discrepancy between your number and the county if the county's doing the dispatching?
For example, I'll give you an example. They weren't giving our mutual aid calls
Okay.
call numbers unless we ask for them. That's not how we used to do it here. It's a change, so that's why the discrepancy is in there. It's nothing that's wrong. It's just something that
That's the reason why.
we operated differently prior to, and we didn't catch it right away. So, but that's why.
Good to know.
You'll see if you go to the July report, if you go into the July report, because we're talking about storms, so I'll jump over there. But the city of Fond du Lac came in here from midnight till 2 a.m. and Princeton, they were running calls with us. And the next day it was really important that our guys got some rest or went to their jobs, and some of them went right from this to their jobs. So they didn't get the time to rest, but we had other departments come in and cover us. So thank you to them. This is the first opportunity we've had at a public meeting to thank them. Ripon, Brandon, North Fond du Lac, Campbellsport, Town of Fond du Lac, and Lamartine. As far as grant updates, we still have a grant out there for $10,000 for smoke detectors and carbon dioxide detectors. We haven't heard anything back from that, and we did some in-service training with the school district for the beginning of the year. ISO comes in September 14th to review our insurance rating, so we're working on preparing for that. That's usually about a 2-day process. And September 25th, we teamed up with Fond du Lac County to do a car seat safety check at the station. So people can come in, they'll be educated on how to put their car seat in safely by the county people, and then if they don't have a car seat, there's going to be donation of car seats going on also. So it's a pretty big event, and we're just co-sponsoring it with them. And we have September Fest, and then the upcoming, we're going to participate in, and then upcoming association raffle. More details on that to follow, and tickets will be available soon. As far as the budget goes, that's right now I'm working on 2 separate budgets. I talked to Jim, and we're gonna one's budget's going to be the normal budget, and then the other one's going to be with proposal for staffing. So I'll get that to Jim soon, and we'll go from there. I don't know if we're gonna have a budget meeting or what. That's for you guys to discuss. I don't know if we're discussing that now.
We wrote it down.
Okay. All right, sounds good. Go ahead.
What about,
That's all I,
what about this year's budget? How are we running with that?
this year's budget is, you know, with the things that have come up, thank God that we've been doing pretty good. You can see in your budget report, I think we're just over 50% of the budget used. I can look. But, but we're doing pretty good. I'm pretty satisfied where we're at right now. And I usually watch that very closely. So yeah, we're just over 50% of the budget at this point. So, you know, we are gonna come into our busy months, you know, October, November, December. So winter months are busy also. So that's all I have.
All right, thank you. Any questions of the chief before we move on?
Well, since this is the first meeting since you mentioned, you know, the big storm that we had in the area, is there anything that we need to point out that you learned from, that we need to take note of? Because it was a unique situation for the area, and I'm not sure how, you know, with the department, if it was uniquely affected. Is there anything to take note of, I guess?
Well, I mean, we work together with all the departments,
Yeah.
emergency management. I think we had a big call review, incident review of it with the emergency management from the county. And I know we're working on a punch list of things that we need to either change or improve on, and good things we've done. You know, we did a lot of good things there also. So, but no, nothing other than that.
All right, thank you. Moving on to old business, do you want to just give us a,
Yep, everything's going very well with the county. With dispatch, we haven't had any issues except for call numbers, but that's it.
all right, thank you. Moving on to new business, Jim, do we need to set up something with them to go over this, or?
Yeah, we can have her, I emailed her again today to verify they can meet us, probably virtual, you know, with everything going on nowadays again, so usually they've done it on the phone. So we could do that at the October meeting,
Okay.
what I kind of presented, October 5th, I believe it is. So we can put that as an agenda item if you'd like, go over it on the 5th.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And next thing is the 2022 budget planning. Your thoughts on, do we need to have an extra meeting towards the end of this month, or can we just?
Without a budget right now to go over, in a sense, and with discussion, I think that's going to come next. I think it'll be a big part of potentially that budget. Can I let you know in 20 minutes?
Good point.
But otherwise, as well, I think the October 5th meeting, I mean, obviously, you know, with the rest of you, we could do an hour ahead of time otherwise and just focus on the budget. And we've done that before, where we meet at 6 instead of at 7 and then just budget. And then we have a regular meeting at 7. We've done that in the past. Because that gives us opportunity then to, at the October meeting, then schedule it if we need another special one. We've done it October 15th, 18th, somewhere there before. It's really going to depend on our next conversation, I think, too.
All right, so moving on to our next item.
Mike had something.
Oh, sorry, Mike.
I just have something for Jim. I finally got a hold of our assessor. I called numerous times in the last couple of weeks, and I kind of felt like an ass after I got a hold of them. They have some changes going on there. Troy has become very sick, and so that was probably the big reason why I couldn't get a hold of them. They were out with that. And I'm not sure if you know the situation, but they said they should have it by the end of this week.
Because then we can plug that back in and go backwards and do cost allocation breakdowns and things like that.
So I just wanted to give you what I found out.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. As soon as you can get it to me. So then I can go
I
back
told
to
them to send it to you right away too.
Okay,
Right?
gotcha. And I'll keep you in the loop if I see or hear anything.
Okay.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate that.
Thanks, Mike. Next thing on here is revisions and additions to the district policy 2.4.8 miscellaneous employment policy, and this will be an action item tonight. Chief, I'll leave this up to you.
Okay, I'm gonna take my mask off. Okay, as you all are aware, we're having some staffing issues during the daytime, Monday through Friday, pretty much between 6 a.m. and 5 p.m. And those hours vary just a little bit in there, but our staffing issue is that most of our members, we don't have a problem at nighttime or on the weekends. At nighttime and on the weekends, holidays, we're all good. It's during the daytime hours. This has been a problem that pretty much has come to light a lot over the last month and a half or so, just because people taking jobs outside the city is pretty much why we're in the predicament we're in. And so what we're looking to do is what I'm asking for is approval to change the policy for residency of members. Because right now, our members have to reside within 7 miles of the fire station. So with that being said, we have 2 members that have recently, well, one recently moved out. He's still a member of the department because he's kind of on a leave right now, pending what happens here. Another member will be moving out, but those members want to stay. So it gives us an opportunity to keep those members, retain them, and at the same time, maybe help with our staffing issues during the day a little bit. But we're to the staffing issues, we're in a bind. We need to address those issues to make sure that our firefighters are safe and the community is given the service that we should be providing. I think I've ran some numbers with Barb, and you know, we ran it on Monday through Friday, 10 hours a day. I did talk to my deputy chief recently, and we may not, you know, there may be some other things that we can do to curb that a little bit. Maybe it's only 3 days a week, 10 hours a day. If we can try to put a different system in place. And what's hard is that the people who have full-time jobs to commit to something in advance, not knowing that until that morning or that day, hey, no, I'm not going to be around or whatever. It's, you know, it's really putting us in a bind. So I did meet with all the officers, and this was the solution we came up with, was to open the residency up, allow us to hire some paid on premise or part-time, however you want to say it, and those members to help us cover the day shifts Monday through Friday where we're hurting for people. So I guess that's where I'll leave it, open it up for discussion. I did run some numbers with Barb. Let me get back to that. And I feel, and I kind of credit myself for this as being financially responsible, and not just going out and spending all the money. That, you know, our budget's tight as it is. You sit and look at it, but where I can pinch and stuff to save money to be able to do this for a few months as a trial basis, and being able to let us plan for next year to see, and then we don't even know if this is going to work or not. It's a Band-Aid. Hopefully it's a permanent Band-Aid. It fixes our problem. Sometimes when people come in and they work part-time from another department, and they work part-time here, and I have one member who moved to Ripon just to get on the fire department. That was his sole purpose, to move it to Ripon. So, you know, if we have somebody who comes in from the outside, works here part-time, might go home and say, you know what, I really love Ripon, I want to move to Ripon. So, not saying that's what's going to happen. We're not going to have 20 people moving to Ripon tomorrow because they all want to be in the fire department, but it's a potential. So There is also what they call a safer grant in the planning process. Hopefully we can have the funds to do it this year with some pinching in other places. Whether we have some funds left over from last year that we can use towards staffing next year, and then additional budget resources to get us through next year, and then apply for the grant to hopefully, the grant pays for anywhere between 3 and 5 years for anywhere between, it starts out 100 or 80%, all salaries and benefits for those firefighters. I did talk to Mount Horeb today. I've talked to a couple of them, but Mount Horeb, they had one in 2008, 2009, and 2019. And 1 year the grant goes for, she said they change constantly. 1 year it was a 3-year grant, the next year it was a 5-year grant. The grant they got last year for a 3-year grant was supposed to be a shareable grant, but because of COVID, they covered the whole thing for the 3 years for the manpower's, benefits and salary. So the idea is that, especially in the volunteer or paid on call departments, that the combination departments to help you get started, and hopefully you can plan and process for the future. You can go online, you can read articles all day long about everywhere in the country is having the same problems. I read one today, doesn't see it getting any better anytime soon. It's the time we live in. There's a lot of reasons for recruitment, that's been difficult. And then obviously our response, our people having jobs is even more difficult. So we're changing our on-call policy right now to hopefully help with our recruitment in a short term. But in a long term, that's a long-term fix. It takes a year to train somebody or better. So recruiting, but we're changing those things. There has been a lot. I thought I was doing very well recruiting, but when you have all of a sudden, I'm thinking I'm recruiting 2 to 3 people a year, but I'm recruiting all of a sudden, I should have been recruiting 5 or 10 people a year, but who knew the future that people would all get jobs out of town? That's where we're hurting. It's the daytime hours, not nights, not weekends. So with that, I'll entertain some questions, some discussion. You were all provided with a thing from the document from the attorney, from legal, with some recommended changes on there or non-changes. But I think that I get both sides of what he's saying. I do think it's something that needs to be considered for, I would say, urgent action to be able to start processing things. But there's a lot of discussion that needs to go with that too, and decisions that need to be made. So I don't know, does anybody have any questions? I don't know where we go from here.
What's the potential cost for now through the end of the year?
So now through the end of the year, we're looking at, it depends how you do it, and I have those for you. You can take one of these and pass it around. Hang on one second, make sure the right one. Yeah, take that, pass that around. So, can I have one, please? Thank you. I'll pass a couple different ones around for you. So, in some of the discussions I've had with some of you, we talked about whether it's 3 people or 4 people. What I've given you is based on 3 people. for this year. And you'll see the cost, depending on what the salary would be, hourly rate, including social security is in there. So that's for October, November, December.
What's your confidence in finding somebody between the $12 and the $14? I think is 12 anywhere competitive? I don't know, I mean,
What I've seen, 13 is pretty much the competitive rate right now. And that's on the mid to higher competitive rate. So $12 is on the low end. And obviously $14 is putting us up above most. You know, it's not, I've been going around and around, back and forth, looking at solutions, and, you know, unfortunately, we're under the same predicament a lot of other people are. And again, this is based on every day of the week. Maybe we can come up with a solution to take some of that away. So.
do you have stuff in the budget that you contract out for? That if you had somebody on staff here, like you have 3 people for 10 hours, if there's no call, is there filler in here that you're contracting out, like grounds maintenance, anything that they'll be able to?
Yeah, oh yeah, there's some stuff on there that, yeah, station maintenance,
Then
ground
that
maintenance,
would
station cleaning.
possibly come out, right? So
That would be where I saved some of that funds, and those would be, I would be using those up there.
Okay.
So,
They wouldn't be just sitting here waiting for a call. There's
No.
other things that they would be doing.
no, I mean, obviously, you know, this isn't why I'm doing it, but obviously, our station maintenance, our station vehicle maintenance, our tool maintenance would improve, our groundskeeping would improve. There's a lot of different things they can do here while they're here. And I don't want to, you know, firefighters, police officers, they're paid for what they have to do, not what they do so much. I know that's not a good way to look at it, but in reality, that's it. But, you know, Portage, Baraboo, Ripon, I've had discussion with all these places, and Portage, which is pretty much the same size as we are, have 2 full-time firefighters every day, plus a third one day. And then they also have their paid on call. They don't do EMS. They do a few more calls a year than we do. And so when you look at it, staffing wise, you know, Baraboo has 4 full-time people during the day, same as us. They don't do EMS. They did just bring in EMS into their fire station, but they don't do EMS. You know, we do EMS like they do EMS, car accidents, that type of thing. So,
So then we'd have 3 people here every day. And they'd actually do 10-hour shifts, the same 3 people.
8 to 10, that time, we went with 10, but 8 to 10. We haven't decided, like, you know, oh man, who did I just say? Mount Horeb. Mount Horeb does, like 6:30 to 4:30. Those are their hours. So they adjust those, for, you know, when they're hurting. One of those people does a 13-hour shift, but that's to pick up the EMS end of it.
But does he
So-
do that 5 days a week then, or?
They do it 5 days a week.
So actually, these guys, if they were just here 10 hours, would have 50 hours a week apiece.
Right, but that person's not, you don't have just that many people. You have a pool of 15 or 20 that, you know, I'll give you an example. Full-time firefighter somewhere on his days off, or another volunteer who doesn't work every day of the
So
week.
you're saying you're not hiring you're not hiring Mike and Jolene and Howard for every day.
Correct.
You're hiring this whole group.
And then-
He's gonna come in on Wednesday, he's coming in on
He might work
Thursday.
5 shifts this month, she might work 3 or 8, whatever.
Because I was gonna say, that's a full-time job.
Yeah, no. They're all limited in their hours, so under WRS, you can only do 1,200 hours total. Now, if a full-time if a firefighter was in the WRS system before 2011, he can only do 600 hours, he or she. So firefighters that are in the WRS after 2011, when Act 10 took place, they can still do the 1,200 hours. So there are, limitations there. Barb keeps awesome track of that. And if somebody's getting close, I find out about it. I look back to 2019, one of our guys who was here all the time worked 500 hours. That was a lot. And he was here a lot. So I was expecting to see like 1,000 hours or 1,100 hours, but it wasn't, it was 500. So, if it was 12 months, 100 hours a month, 10 shifts a month, that's what somebody would be looking at, something like that. So the whole paid on premise is not a new concept. It's not a Ripon concept. It works and it's everywhere. In Illinois, they call it part-time. In Wisconsin, it's paid on premise, but it's people working part-time shifts. One of the Mount Horeb people, they work actually, there's one guy on a 24-hour shift, there's 2 people on a 10-hour shift, and 1 person on a 13-hour shift. That's how it makes up their 4 people per day. So, but that's different, they're a little different, that's full-time now, but they're mostly, a lot of their cost is picked up in the grant. So, and that's how I ended up calling them. I was looking at who got grants, and that's how we ended up talking. But Portage, Baraboo, those are comparables for us, and so go ahead.
You said you've talked to the other officers. Have you opened it up to discussion amongst the whole fire department, or have they, how has that been received?
We haven't, we've kept it to the staff only right now. And what's important is that the paid on call, the volunteer paid on call people are the brick in the foundation of this fire department. This is not gonna hurt them at all, because this is daytime stuff that we're doing it because we have a problem, because people aren't around during the day. Might we have a day where there's 3 people around? We might. We might have a day where there's 1 person around. We've had it. And they're getting to be more and more. So, and when I mean by 1 person, I could have 4 drivers, or 1 firefighter. 1 firefighter doesn't do me any good at a fire. Okay, so that's the predicament we're in right now.
And the candidate pool that you'd pull from for this, they'd come in fully trained, it's ready to hit the
It
ground?
would be minimum entry-level firefighter that's required by the state of Wisconsin.
Right. So it wouldn't be like a year lead-in cost incurred by us for training?
A completed firefighter one.
They would have completed entry-level firefighter, but they could go on to get their firefighter 1. Now, most departments, and that's why I put starting down here for the salary, because most departments, we have 1 person who works part-time on 2 fire departments, and both those fire departments pay a base salary, and then if you're a driver operator, you get another quarter an hour, and if you're a certified firefighter 1, you get another quarter an hour. So that's how they do it. That's why I said starting on here, because I would recommend we do something like that.
Any questions, Jim?
I'm waiting.
To kind of go off Mr. Gasky's comment too with the savings, so this would be a gross cost, but what would be our net position at the end? Because if we're not having the paid on call come in during the day because these 3 individuals cover that call, what would be potential savings from those paid on call people coming in?
There would not be that much savings when you look at it that way, because right now, those people would handle 51 calls. And 51 is the rapid response, they would handle those calls also, okay?
Those people as in paid on call or your part-time?
Those part-time people would handle those rapid response calls during the daytime hours, okay? So there wouldn't be a savings there, because we're only paying one person for that call, if they go on that call. The certain calls,
But that paid on call would cover that portion.
the paid on call,
So when 51 goes out,
Yes.
you're paying that person to go out.
yes,
Now you'd be paying the part-time person.
correct.
So there would be a potential savings of whatever the 51 calls are because they'd be covered by the part-time person
And-
instead of a 4th or a 5th person.
And depending on the calls, for instance, let's just take a car fire, that would be a savings too in there somewhere. It depends on the types of calls, I guess.
I agree. And then for the 3 individuals, what could they do on a call to that point? What call could they go out? Could 3 of them get in a truck? Do we run in the same situation where you may not have a driver on 3 of them? So you have 3 firefighters, but not a driver. How
So,
do we get that pool big enough? To Gary's point, how do you make a pool big enough? I don't want to say that we can pick, but in a sense, we'd have to pick who would schedule daily, who's coming in or weekly, and to that point, who's going to be in charge of all that scheduling, keeping everybody on track, sicknesses, coverage, wintertime can't get here, whatever.
so, okay, so to take it for your first question, drivers. We had 3 firefighters who signed up that day, and some of those firefighters might be driver operators already, okay? Some aren't. If they're not, that's where our driver operator would fill in. So Chief Klepper or Dennis Miller or somebody else would then fill in that shift, okay? Worst case scenario,
So you say fill in, and so it'd be 2 part-time people and then 1 of our own?
correct, correct. So, because our own, I want to give them that opportunity also. Now, you got to remember, we're not stealing from Rob and Peter to pay Paul, because we have plenty of drivers. I didn't think I'd say that. We have plenty of drivers. We don't have firefighters. In that scenario where we don't have a driver, that could be me during the day. So, I could drive. Yes, I could drive. And so, maybe that's a little bit of savings here and there also. What was the second part of your question?
Well, and then to that, it doesn't help with response time, ISO, or anything like that either, because then somebody had asked me about that. Well, would that be potentially a better savings? Because we've talked about that with other full-time firefighters, part-time firefighters. We could increase our ISO ratings, things like that, but really we would get faster potentially because you'd still be bringing in drivers as the paid on call. We'd still have to wait for that driver to get here with 2 of the other people sitting in the truck waiting for the driver to actually get here.
If that driver, well, in that situation, I would drive. As a last resort. But no, when I say fill in, they would be here working that part-time shift. So the driver would be here with them.
One of our paid on call people?
Yes, that's the
drivers would
intent.
be
Yep, that's the intent.
Like Miller or Klepper or one of those things. Would
Correct.
be included in these 3.
Correct. I mean, yeah, anybody who's a driver would be included in those 3, if that's what we're lacking that day.
So we're not necessarily, just to clarify, talking about 3 individuals per se, it could be, but if this were approved, for example, this is about number of hours. I mean, this could be potentially 6 individuals to fill this many hours. I mean, it could be 3 individuals, it could be 6 individuals, correct?
So instead of having
It's just saying we're having 3 on any given day.
3 at 10 hours, have 6 at 5 hours.
Yeah, right?
Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
30 people.
Right, but I mean, just to
Per
clarify.
hour, yeah.
If the
It's
pool's
a
big
whatever, yeah.
I'm lost what you're asking, honestly.
We're talking about, we keep saying 3 individuals, but just to clarify, we're not, it could be 3 individuals, but it could be more than 3 individuals with this budget. This is about saying we just need 3 individuals at one time
Correct.
during the hours.
Correct.
We need potentially 30 hours for the day.
Yes.
Tomorrow it could be only 20 hours. The next day could be 25 hours to that. Worst case scenario, he's asking for at least 30 hours a day versus 3 people.
Yeah,
But 3 people at 10 hours gives us that coverage.
yeah.
Least amount of people, least pool, least, I think is where he was probably thinking.
Got it.
Do you
We-
have, does the administrator have the last year's budget, not this year's, or something, for expenses broke down by hours of calls during the day? You know, just to, because you have, it's 1860, right? So it's fairly simple. It's 1860, and that's all daytime hours for 3 months. Just to ballpark what the daytime call hours was, because this is just, you know, a broad stroke of this was the cost of these people. And by and large, this is all gonna be at night, basically, right? Because you're saying, you know, like if I just pick one, you know, your 5 captains, it's 3,319, and that was probably all biased towards nighttime calls or weekend calls. But somewhere in these numbers, there must be daytime calls. Do we track that at all? And then just take that cost?
Those lieutenants and captains get a stipend for
Yeah.
lieutenant and kite. That is a flat, that's not a cost based on the,
Okay.
that's just a pure,
I pick the bad one.
here's their title, if you will.
Sure.
But I know where you're coming from with that. No, I don't have any of those numbers based on hours.
Okay,
Breakdown of, from noon to 1, it cost us $3,000 because we had 6 fire calls from noon to 1.
we don't get to that level.
No, because technically, it's more of the paid on call, because we have coverage 24/7. I don't want to say it doesn't matter when,
Sure.
but we just have to have that coverage 24/7, so if it did ring, we have the paid on call people that come in because the bell did ring. There's times where they don't come in at all, and there's times they come in as soon as they get back home, or they don't even get home, and they go on another one and another one. So I don't have an hourly yet.
Yeah, we don't break it down like that.
Because it's more about the coverage.
Sure. No, I get that. I'm just trying to, you know,
No, I got you.
I'm picturing Adam getting it, knowing the state of the city's budget.
Correct.
And any way to make this net neutral as possible is gonna be good.
That's where I was thinking with the part-time salaries,
Yeah.
what can offset that, because they're here instead of the part-time salary people. That's where I was thinking of that, John.
And there's not, and you know, in the part-time salaries, it's not like there's a lot of cushion in there. There's no cushion in there. That's literally what we've gotten to that because, you know, that's all our training, our calls, our public education. That pays for everything in there
On a normal year,
on a normal year.
you throw in July, and all of a sudden we have a Watson Street fire again, it's done.
Yeah,
I mean,
a bad storm in the winter.
Yeah, and even July salaries were, we drank a lot more than we normally
yeah.
would for a month.
Yep. So that's how, you know, that's why it's not like we can rob from that to do this. You know, we didn't need to rob from other places to do this. And if I have to, you know, when you're talking about budgets and you're talking about doing things like this, there's gotta be some sacrifices. And some, you know, sacrifices and, discipline of expenditures. Basically what it comes down to. I mean, you know, it all comes down to service. So,
I think to Jonathan's point, then that's 30 grand at the high point for the 3 months. We'd have to go back for next year, for a year coverage, at 120. I mean,
And-
how do we find $120,000 extra budget out of any of the 3 of our budgets?
well, and
I think maybe that's where you were insinuating.
Yeah,
Nothing.
that's what I was getting at.
you know,
I think we're thinking the same.
I don't have, that's why you guys are above me. But, that's why I wanted to see that we're not gonna get an engine this year, okay? It's not gonna happen next year, I should say. We do have funds, excess funds left over. Those funds can be moved to something else with a unanimous vote of the board. And that's why I'm saying we need to take those. That's why I'm not even asking for money for upstairs. This is a priority. This has to be a priority. And that's why I'm saying if we can move those excess funds into salaries, now we only need to come up with $30,000. Not like $30,000 is a drop in the bucket, it's not, but,
It's easier.
you know, and then we can finagle some of those, not finagle, but we can adjust some of the other budget numbers into other line item, from one line item to another. And then we apply for grants, and hopefully next year we get a grant, and that'll take us through the next 3 years. And then another chief can worry about it, I don't know.
Is that a hint?
No, 3 years, 5 years, I mean, whatever, I mean,
Yeah.
you know, there's gotta be a process to help us along, and, you know what, maybe we recruit and we don't have this problem a year and a half, 2 years from now. Maybe that happens.
As I say, part of the problem recruiting wise is with the COVID and everything being shut down, you haven't, and your department hasn't been able to get out like they normally would during a year and talk to people and get them interested in the department.
But the problem, pre-COVID, this isn't just in the
Yeah,
last
no,
year.
but I mean, COVID has brought it on even more.
But I didn't think, honestly, I didn't think that, but that's our problem. Our problem isn't our membership numbers at night and on the weekends. Our problem is our membership numbers during the day. And it's because of work. Nobody can commit to that guarantee of being here. And we're
that's
seeing
been
it.
3, 5, 10-year process. That's not in the last year.
No, I'm not saying it's in,
No, I'm saying it's not.
The-
So to blame it on COVID or. I'm
no,
not
we used to have, I'm not saying that's why,
I'm not either. I'm just
okay.
saying,
But when I came here, we had 15 guys during the day. Then we went and we said, well, now we have to go 2 battalions during the day to make sure that we have that coverage. Now, 2 months ago, we went to, if anybody's available, come down for the call. That's where we're at now. And that's why a month ago or 2 months ago, when we started having these issues, we really started watching it, and now we're to the point. So,
to get 2 or 3 people, what do you anticipate that talent pool needing? 10 people, 12 people, 15, 20? How many people need to be on that
if we're looking for 3 people,
to get 3 people in if we need 3?
if we're looking for 3 people, we probably need 25,
So
20.
to make it real, to a talent pool of 25 people within half hour, what's somebody gonna be willing to drive for $120?
No, those people in that pool would not be required to come back for calls.
Just even to come for a day to work. Because this will be, you're saying, your crystal balls, these are firemen and their days off. Fire personnel from another department, fully trained, ready to roll, and this is their 4 on, 3 off, whatever. They would come here during their days off. And this isn't uncommon in the fire industry or the police, I believe as well. They, I don't want to say moonlight, but lack of a better term, they do. Do you anticipate for $120 they have to drive here, be part of us, come to our trainings as well?
There will be a stipulation for trainings, depending where they come from, whether they're law enforcement or they're fire. Some of that will be taken in consideration.
Okay. So I mean, again, making that carrot, if you will, enticing enough to actually draw in talent and the pool. Because they still need a day off, they still probably want to rest here and there, they still have their things to do on their days off. And if their other departments are hurting that bad, what if their own department calls them and says, hey, Jolene called in, can you cover us? I mean, they're gonna, I would think, push us to the side and cover their own department.
When I
How
come
do we
from,
get that commitment? How do we get them to really commit to that part-time?
well, there's a commitment level there that they're gonna have. I mean, so I come from a department that was all part-time, it was a total part-time department. A lot of guys work full-time other places. There were days when this guy gets offered overtime, or he's demanded on overtime, and he was supposed to be here today, and he calls off and says, I can't do it. Then the message goes out to the other 15 or 20, and anybody want a shift today, and this guy would jump on it. That's kind of how it goes. You might not have those guys driving from Oshkosh, you might have them driving from Green Lake or Montello or, somewhere like that, closer.
My only concern, again, is you have Fond du Lac, Oshkosh, full-time departments. else within a half-hour drive, full-time department, that they would be able to have that kind of people.
Well, Fond du Lac, Fond du Lac firefighters cannot work another job, fire department wise, part-time. Those are their union rules.
So Fondy's out.
Yep.
So basically, we'd be looking at Oshkosh as the only full-time firefighters that could potentially fit that need.
I mean, depending how bad you wanna work another fire job on your days off, you know.
Otherwise, we're going to other municipal, paid on call, volunteer, whatever you wanna call them.
Right,
You'll be going to those type of departments
correct,
to get coverage where they're having the same staffing issue. for-
Correct.
During the days.
but if I'm a firefighter on Joe Fire Department next door, and you know what, we do 10 calls every 2 months, and I wanna get on a fire, I wanna do firefighting stuff, and I have that opportunity to come here and work a shift, I would. Cause I wanna fight fires. I wanna go on calls.
I understand where you're coming from, but my apprehension is they are needed at their department already.
I get that, but
How do we get them here? Besides saying we need help, we have fire calls, but you know, we can give you more call volume.
it comes down to calls, it comes down to passion, it comes down to pay, it comes down to a lot of different things. And, you know, these places like Lake Delton or Baraboo or any of those other places, they have the same thing, you know, paid on premise. North Fond du Lac, Menominee Falls, that's where one of our guys work. He works at North Fond du Lac and Menominee Falls. He travels to Menominee Falls to work a part-time shift. I mean, that's right there, that's over an hour drive, easy, to work a 12 or 24-hour shift.
Is he getting paid any mileage, or is that just coming out of his salary just
Oh.
to do it?
He gets his hourly rate, that's it.
So that person could work here
Could,
with our new situation, if this were to be.
we could, you know, those days he's working those other departments, maybe he's working here, I don't know. You know, I don't know how that would work.
How are you looking to advertise for this?
Through the Chiefs Association.
But to that note, there could theoretically be people in the department right now that would be interested in these positions that you'd perhaps want to offer it to them first. correct?
No, some of those will have the opportunity, everyone will have the opportunity to do it also, but on a limited basis because of how many hours there are already on the department. Plus, we don't want to rob from Peter to pay Paul. I mean, otherwise, if I have 3 guys who want to do it and I put those 3 guys on today, well, I just lost 3 guys who could have been around, additional. You know, not that we have that luxury, we don't, but could it happen?
Not that they can't, it's just then the WRS kicks in, then pension,
Yeah.
we have to contribute additional costs, things like that. So we could choose to do it, it's just a matter of we'd have more cost and more bookkeeping, lack of a better term, to go with. Doesn't say they can't, it's just the WRS kicks in.
But the problem we have is we're not gonna have many people that wanna do this because they can't, because they're working. 'Cause that's why we're in this predicament. So it's not like,
And that's where I'm worried. Honestly, that's where my worry is, the talent pool. Because if there was another department asking us for our people during the day, we don't have them either. So
Yeah.
we couldn't fill their pool, so how are we gonna get filled from somebody else's?
Well,
but it's the same thing as my guy going and working part-time on 2 other departments. We're in a need, but yet he's going there to work 2 other departments
Because he
part-time.
can.
Well, it's money, he needs to
Yeah.
survive, he wants extra money, and so he's working those 2 fire departments. So, nothing against him, he's trying to better himself too, you know?
and I could see, let's say it was a firefighter from Ripon on our staff, or whatever you wanna call it, and he's in Oshkosh. And I don't know how Oshkosh works, but, you know, if he's working somewhere over there, and his work would let him go when they call out for a fire, I could see where that would work too, you know what I'm saying? Okay, let's say I'm on Ripon Volunteer Fire Department. and I'm working in Oshkosh.
At the fire department?
No,
Oh,
I'm
just
working a job, but the job
Yeah,
is, you know,
Yes.
they like to see this kind of stuff. So I could work for Oshkosh Fire Department, you know, on call, where you could get there in 10 minutes versus, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I could see where something like that would maybe work too.
It'd have to be a different department, because Oshkosh is full-time.
I
Yeah,
did,
But I know what you're saying.
Oshkosh, but if they work.
Utica, whatever.
Let's go to Marcus then, I'm working at the rivet company.
There you go. Might as well. I know what you're saying, Gary. Thank you.
you know, I did have a person ask me in the ice cream shop, that, he said, can I run with Ripon during the day? Yeah, he's on another local fire department. And I said, sure. I go, well, where do you work? He said the company he worked at. And I'm like, they'll let me go. Okay. So I checked in with somebody who works at that company. And they said, well, where is he working there? I told him on the production line. He said, ain't gonna let him go. I mean, it's not doing any good for us. And that's what we're running into, is not only jobs, but if you're paying me to pound nails, you want me pounding nails.
On that note, I'd like to maybe request a future agenda item where we think about as a board, perhaps this means more as a city, for those of us on the city council, how we're recognizing local employers that are supportive of allowing emergency workers leave. I think that maybe is another conversation.
We've recognized those individuals that are, we have a awards banquet we do once a year. We haven't done it in 2 years, and we recognized one year we did police, the next year we did EMTs, 1 year we did all the people who help out the fire department and community business owners, and we recognize them that way. I mean, that's recognition is great, but you know, you gotta have the people that are firefighters who work in town to be able to get those people.
And those businesses are hurting like anywhere else right
Yeah.
now.
So they're not letting people go.
Correct. You're seeing that more now too.
Because it used to be, you had a lot of fire department personnel that worked at various businesses in town, and they would let them go, because they understood, small town, if my business is on fire, sure the heck want somebody here to help put it out. That's not the case anymore.
I mean,
We've lost businesses and.
And we had 4 people at Alliance, 4 people at Ace, Smuckers, we had 2 people at Smuckers. Trying to think of Ripon Printers. We've had people who worked at those places, and we still have some, the college, Ace Hardware. But now all of a sudden, all those people have went and got jobs other places. You can't control that. So, you know, and we're not, you know, EMS is having the same problems we are. They pay people on the outside to come in, just like other fire departments do. And so that's where we're at.
So this could be a large conversation about, again, looking at also next year's budget and what we're gonna ask for all of the communities here. Or it could be, but probably it's not a safe bet to look at this that way, that we get through, you know, approve something to get us through to the end of the year and give more time to do recruiting and hope that that's gonna catch up. But maybe, I think that's wishful thinking.
If we're talking about recruiting people that don't have experience, it's not gonna hurt, it's not gonna help us next year, okay? Because it takes a year or better to train somebody. What could help us is if we get 3 people out of the 20 who do love being on the fire. Firefighters have a different life, okay? Some people, firefighting is their entire life. It's not anything else but being at the firehouse. We could find 3 of those people out of the 20, and all of a sudden they're here. That could help us, maybe not. There's no guarantees.
But an increased ramped up effort in recruiting
Yes, absolutely,
will be occurring.
absolutely, absolutely. No, you can guarantee, you can assume.
Because obviously planning for the future and, you know.
Are there any recently retired firefighters that would possibly be willing to come back and help out this type of situation?
We did talk about that a little bit with Gemini, and that was a question he brought up, and I can't answer that, but I know that a lot of the members who are retired probably wouldn't want to come back and be interior firefighters. That's what we're missing. We're missing the younger guys to be in shape, you know, and who want to do that. When we were doing cones with cops, you know, hey, you want to be in the fire department? I had a guy almost talked into the whole thing, but I lost him for 2 reasons. Can't have a beard, and didn't want to commit to firefighter school 2 times a week for 4 months. Gone. I have another one who didn't want to be on call once every weekend for 3 weeks because he goes places with his family on the weekends. We're changing that. Starting September, well, this Friday it changes. So we're hoping that helps with recruitment. I mean, there's things we're going to do to fix this. It's just going to take time. Hopefully it gets better. You read other articles from other departments, people don't think it's going to get any easier because of the time we live in.
So the paid on call right now are required to attend training to be a firefighter on this department. Would these part-time people then be required to attend those trainings as well?
If they're on another fire department, we would give them credit towards some of that training. If they're on a law enforcement agency, they would have to attend training. They would have to meet the same training hours. That's, I mean, there's no policy set in place right now. These are things that we're talking about as officers.
And if they're on another department, they're doing training with that department as it goes in.
Correct.
So,
One of them that just went to a department, he's training there twice a week in the evenings. Well, that, even though we do something different, we do a lot of things the same.
Yes.
You know, some things, and that's where the training would come in for those people, the Ripon, more ribbon training. If you pull a hose there, you're gonna pull a hose here. Might come off a little different, but it's still pulling hose. Still opening a nozzle.
For me, it's safety. That number of pulling hose or spin it twice, spin it 3 times. It's the safety.
knowing what your person next to you does.
Exactly.
Correct.
That's
the
my,
big part, yeah.
that's my heart and concern.
Yep.
Correct. And I got enough experience from other departments that operate similar to this, that how to intermingle those trainings together. So that people do know each other.
So before we would even consider hiring anybody, we would have to change our policy
Correct.
to 2.4.8.
Yes, but the thing is, I can't, just like it states in the document, we need to put all that stuff in place, but to be able to open it up and take even applications, like it says in here, that's part of the process, and we might open it up, we might not get any applications. I have no idea how this is gonna work. I think I know, but I really don't. Nobody knows. If this doesn't work, we gotta dig our heels in and do something. Since we've had this discussion, there has been another thought of how to limit those 5 days. Maybe there is something that we can say, you know what, can you commit to this day to be on the engine that day? I don't know. We've gone around, we haven't found it yet, but we're still looking. We're not just giving up on this and saying, this is the way we want to go. But we've got to start. In my opinion, I got to be able to start fixing it.
So what is plan C, D, wherever we're at? If the talent pool doesn't come in and we don't get that, then what's our plan D?
And everybody on the street grabs a pail.
I mean, because if we don't get the talent pool, we're sitting at this table again without coverage during the day. And then it comes down to basically we don't have the ability to send an engine out the door during the day.
There have been some other discussions of a plan B, but I can't talk about that right now. And a plan C, but I can't talk about that right now.
And isn't part of it means that if we go to a lower end of of the salary, the hourly rate, then we try a higher end of the hourly rate. I mean, that's a adjustment that could happen, correct?
Well, I think we need to,
He got me
I think we need to pick one,
And stick with it.
and
I understand that,
Budget-wise.
but if we don't get anyone to apply.
if we don't get anybody to apply for $13 an hour plus 50 cents if they have these two certificates, we're not gonna get them to apply for $14 an hour. Let's look at it that way. But according to my, you know, and I talked to a lot of people about going rates, and one of my part-time firefighters, well, who works at North Fond du Lac in Menominee Falls, said we're right there, according to what he gets paid in other places.
What I'm seeing with hiring, staffing issues, it's not even, the wages isn't the issue usually right now. You can put $25 an hour, you still can't get people to apply. You can put $28 an hour, you still can't get people to apply, so. At this point, you're basically looking to see if we want to open up the residency requirement. So at least we can put feelers out there, application process starting, and go from there.
Right.
We're not approving any cash tonight or anything like that, or pay, or budget, or anything.
Right, I don't believe so. I think we just wanna change this policy to open it up.
For that option.
And I think if we do, you know, if I can put it out there that we're taking applications for a paid on-premise firefighter, and, you know, hourly rate to be determined and hours to be determined, put your application in, you know, we're gonna get a feel right off of that, what happens, without even putting an hourly rate out there.
So if we want to change this section 2.4A, do we have to put in all the other stuff that, like they suggested for the bonus and
No, I
service
think,
awards or anything
no,
like
that's,
that, or-
I think that's what he was saying, is in the next meeting, we'd have to do something like that, or the next meeting, we'd have to come up with all that before we actually hire somebody. Am I right, Jim? But what he's saying is,
First, we have
if
to
the
decide
board,
on the residency.
what's that?
First, we have to decide a residency. Then, once we decide on that, then we can decide on those paid part-time people, what benefits we choose to give them.
Correct, correct. So on the top of page 2, and the bottom of page 1, if you wanted to, if the board wanted to act and address the staffing by voting to remove the residency requirement, that's the first step. And that's, he says at the minimum, that's what we could do tonight.
And that's all we do tonight.
Yeah, and it's really all I'm asking for, to be able to get the feelers out there and to be able to get back to 2 members or 1 member of my department who's kind of in limbo to give them direction on how we're gonna go, so.
So this seems pretty non-controversial, and I think of, well, why was a residency requirement even enacted to begin with? If there was a concern that someone from outside would take a position, a role for someone that lived closer, right?
Because that wasn't the intent.
Paid on call,
We're a paid-on-call fire department.
response time.
Response time is the big
Right,
thing.
because you have to live, to be on call in the on-call group, you have to live in town. You can't live 10 minutes
You
away,
couldn't have said that
15
when you're
minutes
on
away.
call, you're in the city. I mean, isn't that what we're saying? If we're concerned about response time, shouldn't it have originally been, when you're on call, you're within so many miles versus you have to
Yes.
live within so many miles? Those are 2 separate things.
We have the 7-mile limit right now.
Yeah.
Exactly, but my point is
Oh,
that,
to be in or live in,
yeah,
was what she's saying. But it's,
That was previous Act 10, and you could mandate that as a
Oh, I
protective
see.
service.
okay.
Same with police, then I believe, don't quote me if it was Act 10, I believe it was Act 10, that was disallowed, where you couldn't do that anymore in police. Part of the protective
Those
service.
restraints couldn't be held on
If I'm
Yeah.
an
not
officer.
mistaken, I think that was all.
Because we have an officer on our police department that wanted to live 15 miles
Mm-hmm.
out of town, and that was part of when that went through, he was able to do that then, and still be on the department. So,
Actually, the EMS, I knew a gal was on there, and she moved into the town of Ripon from the city, and that was the end of her job too. Is that way it was written back then. Some of these things, were fine when they were written and, you know, time progresses, things go on.
Times change.
Times
So,
change.
and hypothetically, changing this to non-residency requirement, you also open it up to the potential of a different volunteer that's coming here. Right, when I worked at Alliance, 90% of the people I worked with didn't live in Ripon.
Right.
So hypothetically, there might be one of them that is also a firefighter. And Alliance is a bad example, because nobody in their right mind right now would leave Alliance to come here. But
Yes, potentially open it up to other volunteers to volunteer, but, you know, they have to live within, I mean,
like Aaron Dolovit, I don't know if you know that name, he lives in Berlin, I think he's a firefighter in Berlin. So, I mean, when he comes to Ripon to work, he could volunteer here and tell you that he was filling in.
correct, there's a guy who, there is a Berlin firefighter who works at Alliance Laundry,
Yeah.
who, yeah, theoretically could now. Really, if he's able to leave there during the day,
Yeah.
he could be a paid-on-call person here, absolutely.
We ran into also situations of, am I only daytime, am I only weekend, am I on nighttime? We also ran into that over the years of people coming and saying, I only want to run during the week, I don't want to run weekends. Well,
That doesn't work
so
either.
that's where sometimes that residency,
Sure.
also, they were here for nights, weekends, days versus, well, if I'm only working in town, to your point. Well, I'm only going to do Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, I don't want weekends because I'm back in Berlin, I'm back in Wapaka, I'm back wherever. So that was another reason residency requirements, in my opinion, were kind of not a bad thing because it kept your talent pool local, that you'd have them all the time.
And being able to get here on time for,
Mhm.
to go on a call, you know.
Training, everything like that, so it,
And the one thing the last thing I want to say is that all our members here are beyond super dedicated. This is not about their dedication, this is not out to hurt anybody. This is about providing a service and guaranteeing we have an engine company that can get out the door. That's what this is about. And those people are the foundation, they're gonna have benefits, I'm sure, that the part-time fill-in people, employees, are not gonna have. That's very common other places. So, and I can give you examples to that. But again, this is not about them. We have super dedicated people here, and I don't wanna forget that. And I want it to come across like we don't. They're limited
this
in
isn't
what they can do.
replacing them, this is in addition to them.
This is an enhancement to them, that's it.
And to that message, the fact that we're even saying that now, it shows that this may be something that needs a messaging to go out to our communities. If this gets passed tonight and a change happens, is there a sort of a press release that would we want to go out so that we're controlling the message, and so the message is why this is a positive for this area and not that we are not honoring our local people, right?
No, not at this point, I don't believe. I think that we need to see where it goes first, in my opinion.
As long as the staff understands, in my opinion.
Okay.
As long as the staff truly understands the motives behind this, that we're not gonna be becoming a part-time department, that it starts during the day, and then it turns to night, and then it turns into weekend shifts, you know, somebody comes through 24/7. That's not my intent from this, by any means.
Nope.
I'll say that out loud. But as long as they understand that.
And the other thing is, the communities that we serve couldn't afford that anyway. You know, there's no way we could afford to staff the fire station fully every hour of the day, I don't believe.
And, you know, we might go this route and all of a sudden, you know what, well, we're only gonna do it this couple days this week because this week nobody's around. It's come, you know, to a scheduling thing. Maybe that's what it comes to. I don't know. I mean, we're obviously gonna give the opportunity to our people to make sure we can do our own first. So,
So then, at this point in time, we would need a motion to remove the residency requirement from section 2.4A of our district's policies and procedures.
I have a motion to amend the policy 2.4A to remove the residency requirement, which will allow the district to start the pool search.
I second that.
Is there any other discussion?
And we're just approving just that motion, we're not the further conversation about any of the?
Nope.
Okay.
Nothing about budget, nothing about money, nothing about hiring.
I'm good.
I think we gotta come back to that personally,
Yes.
yeah. You know what I mean? And we'll have to come back to it once he gets an idea of the talent pool. And then we can get a true idea of what that costs and when. And then we can have more discussion over next year, because again, this is a Band-Aid for a month or two. I have a feeling this could be in the next year. So that's why I'm doing it that way.
Because we're never going to get this back, I'm not convinced we should ever have the residency requirement back. But is there anything we need to think about as we're making our motion to say something to the effect of, we're removing the residency requirement when needed, or, I see you're shaking your head,
It
but I
can't be
mean,
as an as-needed situation, has to be, it's removed or it's not.
I guess what I'm trying to say is, so,
If down the road.
Down the road, we
don't
need to go back to
put
it, then we bring it back on the table.
are you sure we
with the state.
can bring it back?
Yes, you can come back.
It's our bylaws.
And change our bylaws.
Okay.
It's our bylaws. As long as there's nobody in the department that we're gonna have adversely affect,
Right.
or their grandfather.
Mhm.
Do you want to?
Is that what you mean, like, that we change it and then somebody's on the department or whatever? No. And we get to choose who we hire.
Do you want to have a call time in there? Like it used to be the 7 minutes or whatever, 7 miles, right? Do you want a time stipulation, so you're not
No.
just getting someone?
No.
And they're just not showing up for calls?
No, I think that just goes based on what Jim just said. I mean,
Just you're hiring.
we can hire whoever we want if we feel they fall into our need, and then we hire them. I mean,
That's basically goes back in the on-call to operating procedure more than bylaw.
correct.
That if they're not showing up on calls, not coming, then, yeah.
And that's for us to determine when this happens, or if this happens, that, hey, if we go to paid on premise, well, what are the hours? Well, that's for us as chiefs to determine what those hours would be,
That's
in my
it.
opinion.
Operating versus board.
Sure.
You know, kind of the, how micro you.
Yeah.
But I think opening up that residency might just, what you just said, that Alliance guy who's in the back of my mind now, maybe it now allows him to be in the department during the day, and he's gotta make trainings, or whatever the case may be.
He already shaves.
What's that?
He already shaves.
He already shaved. Yeah, you can get on too if you wanna shave.
Any other discussion on this?
Well, just a real quick, so I understand. So if there's two people that are equal in all aspects, and one lives locally and one is out of town, by removing this, there's no preference that you could give to a local person, correct?
No.
I mean,
It's just like a normal candidate pool.
Yeah, exactly.
We're gonna take them both right now, so it wouldn't matter.
yeah, so at the end of the day, this doesn't matter because we need lots more.
Yes.
We need a lot more
Like I said,
people.
we need 25 people in this pool to make this work.
And you know what?
Then it comes back to the labor law and fair practice,
Yeah.
and hiring, and just as long as you're not basing it on a discriminating
Mhm.
factor.
All we're doing right now is opening a residency to hopefully get more people.
Yeah.
That's it. If all of a sudden, in the next 4 days, I have 5 guys or 10 guys that come up and say, hey, I can do this, this, and this. Oh, well then, let's hold off on it. Let's not do this. Let's just
Yeah.
keep doing what we're doing. Let's
Yeah.
adjust what we're doing and move forward. But in case that doesn't happen, which it probably won't, we need to be prepared to move forward
Yeah.
sooner than later. So,
Any other discussion? Jim, would you repeat your motion?
Sure.
And then we'll do a roll call vote.
Motion by Word, second by Hanson, to amend policy 2.4A to remove the residency requirement, which will allow the district to start the part-time pool circuit.
All right, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Page,
Yes,
Mr. Wirtz, Mr. Hanson,
Yes.
Mr. Wargula,
Yes.
We
Jolene.
shot together. Yeah. Yes.
I knew that's what it
Yes.
Sorry,
You
I'm
don't
sorry.
have to try to say it.
This is shots to the
Yes.
I'm the one that has to spell it.
Mr. Gotsky
Yes.
and Mr. Vandenbrink votes yes. Motion passes.
thank you.
good luck.
So next steps would be follow up with legal again for any other, I think Mike's question about determining pay structures, all that kind of stuff, and to get it publicized. think through what the next steps would be, and then in October meeting, we'll address it again.
Right.
Okay.
But I can't put it out there that we're taking applications. Do you want me to go over that with you, because you're secretary? Or,
I would say legal and just make sure it's published the right way, we'll go from there.
okay.
All right, moving on. There's nothing for board discussion. We do have 2 future agenda items, audit and the revisions for the, what we just talked about, 2.4. Our next regular,
And I have the budget on there,
Yeah.
2022 budget.
yes.
Okay. In case we do any acting, because we gotta probably act on it in October or a special meeting, because we have to get it to us by November.
I did state that I would like at a future meeting to clarify how we are honoring local businesses. I'm not saying it has to be at the next meeting,
Well, we're doing what?
how we are honoring businesses that are supportive of emergency workers, specifically if we represent the fire district. Fire, I mean, it could be as simple as it's always included in the annual banquet, but I think, I don't know, am I speaking out of turn? Wouldn't it be nice to sort of clarify how that's done annually?
Well, and
I have to
that,
remember that on camera. Yes, I agree. I guess I would like more info of, tactful here, how businesses are actually being supportive right now.
But that's why.
To make sure they are, right?
So my question is, should this be an agenda item, or should more information be gathered first?
Are you thinking on the grounds of recognizing businesses that allow firefighters to leave their
Correct.
their job? Is that what
Correct.
you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I just feel like as a board, it would be nice to recognize them. As you mentioned, we already are, it sounds like, at the annual banquet. But it sounds like, obviously we could because of COVID, but shouldn't it be a practice that we are all informed about how that happens, and it's just part of our regular annual practice?
Something to talk about.
I
mean, right?
I'm trying to, it's not that I disagree with it, I'm just trying to think of, I'm trying to process it all.
Well, I guess my point is, so shouldn't it not be a discussion item? Maybe there's nothing to discuss, but it gives us an awareness to think about and have it on the agenda? Or you're looking like that's not appropriate?
I'm just thinking, again, to me, it's always to make sure, I agree 100%, to acknowledge them somehow and thank them, obviously, and I know I do when I talk to some of them. But it opens us up to the opportunity of missing somebody, forgetting somebody. Is it just about letting them leave? Is it about monetary? Is it
Do we
about-
not recognize them enough over
Correct.
this person? There's a lot of, that's what I was thinking about.
That's my only concern.
And,
I said thank you to you, but I didn't say thank you to Mike, even though it was inclusive, but I was looking at you when I said it, and then Mike gets mad at me because I didn't say thank you to Mike.
Mm-hmm.
We're good. You know, that feeling.
Yeah.
I see.
And it was
I
very-
understand where you're coming
Mhm.
from, but for me, that is always hard, because did they do that? Did they donate a refrigerator? And it was in
I see.
January, and we forgot about it this year, and they're not part of it. Just can set us up to fail.
Okay.
Fleet Farm donated a wood pellet oven stove for us, okay? They didn't donate manpower, they weren't from here, they're from Oshkosh. So it's like, you know, we wanna make sure we recognize everybody equally, you know? And it was very hard, and we did that, and we recognized the businesses at the awards banquet. It was super hard to go down that list. I can't tell you how many times we went through to make sure we weren't missing somebody. Because if we're thanking them for supporting the fire department, you know what? Howard had given us one shirt, and we forgot to thank him. And to him, that was a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
And to us, maybe it was still a big thing, but it wasn't, you know what I'm
It wasn't
talking
the
about?
exact-
Just
I mean,
missed it. Just
It's-
in the scheme of things.
It's so much easier when someone
Even when you.
does something for the department, whether it be a donation of an item or letting a firefighter off or whatever, just send them a thank you card, a note, you know.
Which we're very good about doing.
Yeah.
We are.
versus
And maybe that's my
print in the
discussion.
paper, these are the people we recognize,
And so my point is maybe that's the discussion item I want is to hear that, thank you card is being sent, because we as a board don't, right? And so maybe we don't need it now as a discussion item because I just heard it.
because that's not
Um,
our job as the board to do that.
But I think our
That
job.
that would
is-
be micromanaging the department itself in policies and procedures.
Sure, you can say that my point is as a board, it's nice to get an update on how we are thinking. And
Right.
that's how I see as a board.
I think that maybe what you're asking is updates from me saying,
Yes.
we think this person, well,
Okay,
if that's what you're saying.
it's something to consider is my point.
And that's something you can do in your,
Exactly,
in your
yeah.
chief's report. I don't think it needs to be on here as an agenda.
I agree, I'm no longer putting it on the, thank you for this good conversation and I'm no longer requesting it.
Okay, thank you. So our next regular meeting will be October 5th at 7, but just in case we start at 6 for budget reasons, just
Be ready.
you be noted.
Do we want to just?
Schedule it now and.
I'd rather
then
plan
We can always,
post
we
it.
can always
All right. So that's-
change the start time.
So we'll plan on October 5th at 6 o'clock for budget.
How often do you lose candidates to background checks?
How often what?
Do you lose candidates to background checks?
A lot.
Is your background check set by the board, by you, by the city, or by?
It's in our bylaws,
Okay.
and then it's in our bylaws for certain things, and then it's discretion of the fire chief also.
Could be a future agenda item. I'm just saying.
It was a separate conversation I was having with Adam about the city in general and
Oh,
what the background check process is. So, you know, it's learning for me, but also I'm just wondering if you're losing candidates and, you know, the library's losing candidates, you know, and if there's room for conversation about what that background check process is, right? If there's maybe wiggle room that we start to have if we're starting to lose candidates.
I would prefer to lose candidates sometimes.
I mean, probably
I'm
not for
sorry?
the arson guy, we should leave that in the background check, but other stuff.
We're in a different thing than the library. We're in public safety
No, I get it, I get
service.
it.
I mean, you know,
Millions of dollars of apparatus.
Yeah.
people trust, I mean, I don't know. All I know is that it's set in the bylaws, it says it right in here. But, you know, if you're convicted of a felony, no, or whatever, this is what I go off of. The police department does our background checks for us. If they technically pass this, but they have other issues that are gonna be issues, we don't hire them. We don't have to hire.
I'd say have a one-on-one with chief about what it is. It's not a discussion item for tonight.
Yeah, no.
I'd say have a one-on-one with chief and go over what our policy procedure is for what we screen for. And if you have some issues with any of it, then that'd be something we can discuss with the board and change our policy. Think so?
Okay. So at this time,
I think
we'll
that'd be the best.
Yeah,
See what it bids first.
look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Or a second?
Sure.
Gary, all in favor?
I
Aye. Opposed?